So a man arrives at the gates of heaven, and who's there to greet him but, of course, St. Peter. St. Peter says to him, "What religion are you?" The man says, "Methodist." The guy says, "Where do I go? What do I do?" St. Peter says, "Well, look, you go down to room 24. It's 2 doors down past the Scientologists, but be very quiet when you pass room number 8. Another man arrives at the gates of heaven. "What religion are you?" Hindu. Namaste. Namaste to you. "And where do I go?" "You're 2 doors down past Shirley MacLaine's followers in room 18, but be very quiet as you pass room number 8. Then the Jewish guy is up at bat. He's up to the gates, and St. Peter says, "What religion are you?" "Jewish." "Shalom Alechem." "Alechem Shalom to you." What denomination are you?" "Apathetic." "Hey, you're in good company. Go to room 21, right? 3 doors down past the lapsed Catholics, but be very quiet as you pass room number 8. Now, this Jewish guy just can't let it go, right? That's not what we Jews do. So he says, "Okay, I get it. We were in separate rooms down below. That makes sense. But up here in heaven, why are we in separate rooms? And what's the deal, by the way, with room number 8? Room number 8. Well, that's where we keep the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they think they're the only ones here, right?" Room number 8, you can fill in the blank with that religion, because there isn't a religion that hasn't believed that they are the only ones, that they have the keys to the kingdom, that they have the truth, that is their way or the highway. And their way is really the only one to take. You see it all the time. I think the best place to see it are these doomsday, eschatological, end-of-days predictions. I mean, true narcissism to believe that our religion knows exactly when it's the beginning of the end. You saw it a couple years ago. Remember driving into Boston, those big billboards from Radio Life Ministries and the Meshuggah Herald Camping, who said, repent, the end is nigh. You always got to say nigh. The end is nigh. It's coming to an end. And then it came, and then it went, and we were still here. Here we are. There have been many other predictions, and there will be many more. Coming soon to a theater near you on 12/12/2012. The Mayans say it's the end of the road. There's an elevator going up for the believers, and the rest of us are taking the elevator down, down, and down. There's a saying in the Christian Bible. It says, "It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." I would just change that. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle these days than for any man or any woman to get into the kingdom of God, because you have to be the right religion, you have to be the right denomination, you have to be the right beliefs. It's getting harder and harder to get into heaven, and it seems like more and more of us are doomed to hell. Now, this bothers Jews. I know it does, especially evangelical Christianity's understanding. At least most, not all, evangelical Christians believe, right, if you affirm Christ, you're going to heaven, and if you don't, like the rest of us, the Jews, we're going to hell. It doesn't bother me. A, because I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and all my friends are evangelical Christians, and I just came to accept it. This is their belief. B, because a teacher of mine, Dennis Prager, did the following. On national television, he made a deal with the Reverend Jerry Falwell, and he said the following: "Reverend Falwell, can we agree that if you and your supporters unequivocally keep supporting the state of Israel, that me and my followers, upon Jesus' return, will accept him as the Messiah?" And they made the deal, and it was a win-win. And as Prager said, you gotta like that bet as a Jew, because we don't believe in the second coming. But more importantly, we don't care what you believe. As Jews, we do not care what you believe. We care what you do. And the last I checked, Hindus will eat at my house on vegetarian night. Mormons will call me Rabbi. Catholics will daven in my synagogue and your synagogue. And evangelical Christians unequivocally support the state of Israel. And last I checked, some of our ultra-Orthodox cousins don't recognize the state of Israel, don't certainly recognize me as a rabbi, don't recognize female rabbis, females at all in their minyan, don't recognize gay Jews, don't accept our converts, would never eat at your table or my table, and they'd never step foot in our shul. Right? I don't have time for other religions' mishigas. We have our hands full with our own mishigas right here at home. In my opinion, it is going to be a generation or two before we're no longer even cousins, between the ultra-Orthodox and the rest of the Jewish community. It is a matter of time before you have separate religions altogether. But in the meantime, we have a real problem. And here's the problem. I don't care what they do. I don't care what they believe. Gegezunte, hey, go and be well. But what I do care is that they have convinced the rest of us that they are the real deal when it comes to Judaism, orthodoxy. Ultra-Orthodoxy is the bar that non-Orthodox Jews have set. How do I know that? Because we call ourselves non-Orthodox. The Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox are what, 10% of the Jewish population? We've defined ourselves by not being a part of the minority. They should be calling themselves non-conservative Jews, non-reformed Jews, non-renewal Jews, right? To define ourselves by what we're not has deep consequences to the psyche of a people. But there's another litmus test, and it's even easier. Walk around any reform or conservative synagogue in America, in the world, and on some wall in that synagogue, you're going to find pictures of dancing Hasidic rabbis. Guaranteed, there's one down the hall. Now, go find me a picture anywhere in the world of an Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox synagogue of dancing Reform rabbis. Find it. Dancing female Reform rabbis. Ain't going to happen. Dancing gay female Reform rabbis. The Mashiach will come before you'll find that picture hanging in an Orthodox shul because they believe they're the real deal, and that's fine, but they have convinced us that we are not. And I hear it all the time. Somebody will approach me and say, Rabbi, and they'll be speaking about themselves, and they'll say, I'm not a good Jew. And I know exactly why they're going to say this. I know how they define good Jew. I call it the Orthodox Trinity, right? There's Shabbos, there's Kashrut, and there's Tefillah, there's prayer. And that's exactly what they say. I'm not a good Jew because I don't keep kosher perfectly. And I'm not a good Jew because I don't observe Shabbat completely. And I am not a good Jew because I don't daven frequently enough in the right synagogue, with the right Siddur prayer book, with the right intention. That's what it means to be a good Jew. Now, here's a real problem. As you look around the room, there are 1,100 people here. There are more online. Not one single person here, by this definition, is therefore a good Jew. Not one who keeps Shabbos completely and kashrut perfectly and davens 3 times a day, every day. They lost me on that one, right? We try our best. We do the best we can, but there isn't a person here who passes the good Jew litmus test. My friends, non-Orthodox Jews have a real challenge ahead of us. We don't know what we stand for. We don't define ourselves by what we are, but by what we're not. We're constantly talking about the sky is falling. We have an inferiority complex, shrinking movements and assimilation and waning attendance. We're reactive, we're uninspired, we're fearful, but worst of all, we truly don't believe that we are good Jews or have any chance of becoming good Jews. This is a danger to any religion that wants to sustain itself. We have priced Jews out of Judaism, out of synagogues. We've priced Jews out of Jewish day schools. We've priced Jews out of Jewish summer camps. And now we're pricing Jews out of being a good Jew. Now we're pricing Jews out of heaven too. That is a dangerous price point to set, and one that we must deal with, one that we actually began dealing with this morning. The first couple lines of the Torah reading were about Nadav and Avihu, the first bad Jews. Whatever you have done does not compare to Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron, take the censer and their incense, and they go into the Holy of Holies. And whatever they did, clearly they did it wrong, because God zaps them down right where they stand, a pretty good litmus test that you're not a good Jew. None of us have been struck down by lightning bolts, so we're faring better than Nadav and Avihu. But we do have to ask, what did they do so wrong? What was this Eish Zara, as it's called? The foreign fire, that moment when they transgressed or they digressed. The traditional reading is, look, halakha is rigid and it's absolute and it's binding. It is a checklist. There's a lot of do's and there's a lot of don'ts, and don't get too creative and don't become impulsive. Maybe Nadav wanted to start a little Ruach rally. Maybe Avihu wanted to give a sermon on seasons of love. Whatever it was, lo tziva otam, God did not command them. And they are not going to Olam Haba, the world to come. No chance to tiptoe past room number 8. But there's another reading, a redemptive reading, our reading that we need today. What is foreign fire? What is the sin of Nadav and Avihu? What did they offer or not offer that they were supposed to? There's a midrash that says, Abba Chanin said, their sin was they didn't marry. They didn't have children. It isn't to say you have to marry or have children to be a good Jew, but it is to say in their case, they were so busy serving God through rituals. They were so busy being pious through prayers. They spent so much time in the temple that they did not get out into the world where it is that we are called to serve God. They should have spent less time engaged in ritual and more time engaged in life. They should have spent less time studying Torah and more time living Torah. They should have spent less time offering sacrifices and more time being a sacrifice, giving of themselves to a spouse, to a child, to their family, to their community, getting out of the yeshiva, serving in the IDF, getting a job. That's what it means to be a good Jew, to give of ourselves, to volunteer, to give tzedakah, to go out into the world and serve. But this was their sin. They were so caught up in rituals and mitzvahs and halakha. Yes, Shabbos is important and kashrut can be beautiful and tefillah, prayer. It's part of the Jewish enterprise. But these are a means. They have never been, they should never be, an end unto themselves. The great Rav Yehuda Hanassi says in the Midrash, why did God give us commandments, mitzvot? For one reason and one reason alone, so that we can become purified by them. He continues on, God doesn't care if we keep kosher. God doesn't care if we have separate dishes and pots and pans. God doesn't care if we refrain from ripping toilet paper on Shabbat. God doesn't care what siddur you pray from or what synagogue you pray in, right? Why did God give us these things? So that we could become purified. We could become better Jews. We could become better human beings. The Kutzker Rebbe said, even a mitzvah can be made into an idol. Even the Torah can be turned into idolatry. How? If it becomes an end unto itself. If we are only doing these things simply to serve God, then we have missed the point. Because these are means, and they're all beautiful means, and they have the potential to be holy means. But they are means to help us open our mind and open our heart, and most of all, to open our hand. Greater men than I have said this thousands of years ago. This is exactly what the prophets were railing against during their time. People obsessed with the temple, obsessed with offering up the korbanot, the burnt sacrifices. And Isaiah came and said, you know what it means to be a good Jew? Do you know what God wants? I can take 613 mitzvot, commandments, and break them down to 6. Isaiah said, what does it mean to be a good Jew? Walk righteously, walk upright, speak upright, despise greed, don't take bribes, don't sit by bloodshed while you do nothing about it, and don't shut your eyes to the evil of the world. Last night's talk, he didn't mention one word about kashrut. Micah comes along and says, I can do better. I can break it down to 3. What are the 3 things you need to do to be a good Jew? You need to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly before your God, not a mention of Shabbos. And then Jeremiah comes and says, no, I can break it down to 2. Do justice, do righteousness, not a word about tefillah, prayer. But God says it best when she comes to the Levites and tells them how to run the temple. Remember, the Levites are the ones who set the temple up, took the temple down, cleaned out all the icky, yucky stuff after the sacrifices. They were the ones who stood guard, who protected the people in the midst. They were the ones who served. What does God say to them? Not to the Kohanim, the priests, but to the lowly Levites. La'avod et avodat Adonai, that you serve me. through serving this temple, through serving this community, through serving the people within it. Or to say it in the modern language of Albert Einstein, man is here for the sake of other men. Human beings are here for the sake of other human beings. How earnestly I must exert myself in order to give in return as much as I have received. That is what we are here to do, to give back, to give at least as much as we have received. Or in the words of Rabbi Joseph Telushkin, a great Orthodox rabbi, the purpose of Jewish existence is not to eat Jewish food. It's not to tell Jewish jokes. It's not to use Yiddish swear words. It's to fight evil and to reduce suffering in the world. It's to go out and to serve. Do you know why I'm giving this sermon? Because on 3 separate occasions this past year, I sat with a dying person, each one an elderly Jew, each one fearful of dying, and each one basically saying to me the same thing, that they didn't believe they were worthy to go wherever it is that good souls go, to get into Olam Haba, to get into heaven. They didn't believe it. Why? Because they didn't observe the Orthodox Trinity. They didn't keep Shabbos, and they didn't keep kosher, and they didn't daven enough. Milt was a man who served his country. Milt is World War II generation. Milt is like many of you, the greatest generation. Milt was, at 18 years old, asked to go serve overseas. He had just gotten married, and he went overseas and he served there for 5 years, not seeing his wife for 5 long years, putting his life on the line for 5 long years, willing to risk everything, not the least of which was his hopes going to college. By the time he came back, it was too late. He had to get a job. Milt went out into this world and served. And as Milt was dying, I sat there with him and said, Milt, what you did, the sacrifices you made, that makes you a good Jew. And there is a place for you in Olam Haba, the world to come. La'avod et avodat Adonai. We become good Jews through serving God, and we serve God by serving those in the world. And then there was Joe. Joe was of the immigrant generation. Joe came here with nothing, probably like a lot of your grandparents, your great-grandparents. He was the last of his generation. Joe came from the old country because he wanted to give his family a better life. Joe left behind his community, his livelihood. He left behind his name. He changed everything. He came here having no contacts, knowing nothing about the language, having no money, and yet he built for himself a life here. And he died and left behind a wife and 3 children and 6 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. And he left them with security, and he left them with opportunity, and he left them with life. No, he didn't keep kosher. No, he didn't daven. No, he didn't observe Shabbos. But Joe was a good Jew because Joe knew what it meant to risk life and limb and give your family life, a better life. This was a man who gave more than he took. And then there was Sylvia. Sylvia was the real reason I gave this talk, because Sylvia was truly heartbroken as she died. She was from Long Island. She spent the final years of her life here. But she told me about how on Long Island she was president of her synagogue. She kept Hadassah afloat down there. I was told she gave generously to the Federation. Her daughter said in the eulogy that Sylvia was the woman you would go to in the Jewish community when you needed a volunteer, when you needed something to happen, when you needed things to get done. Sylvia believed with every ounce of her being, however, that was not enough to get her entrance into the kingdom of heaven. She died, no matter what I said, no matter how hard I said it, believing that she was not a good Jew. And in that moment, I vowed to never again allow somebody to define Judaism so rigidly and so narrowly. These are great men and women, not because they prayed with their mouths, but because they prayed with their feet. I'm reminded of Abraham Joshua Heschel's expression. This comes from Abraham Joshua Heschel, a great rabbi, who marched in 1965 with Martin Luther King Jr. There's a famous picture of him marching. Everybody says they marched with Martin Luther King Jr. He did. There's a picture, arm in arm. And somebody gave him a hard time. So they said something like, shouldn't a frum Jew like you be studying Torah, not demonstrating? Shouldn't a religious Jew like you be praying on the Upper West Side? They don't march. To which he responded beautifully and brilliantly, as Heschel always did. Right, when I'm on the Upper West Side, that's where I'll pray. But right now, when I'm marching in Selma, Alabama, I am praying with my feet. This is what we need outside of Orthodox Judaism. We need vision, we need inspiration, we need new language, new standards, new places to strive towards so that we can become good Jews. Yes, kashrut and Shabbos and tefillah are part and parcel of who we are and what we are, but that's not all that we are. They are a means, they are not an end. What we need in what am I going to call it? Non-Orthodox Judaism. For now, until you give me a better term, what we need in non-Orthodox Judaism, and most of all, what we need in this community now more than ever, are more Joes and more Milts and more Sylvias, men and women who know how to pray with their feet. Because this is a community at a crossroads. I feel like Chicken Little every year, the sky is falling. Well, you know what? The sky is not falling. This year, we're solid and have some amazing transformations and changes taking place on this Jewish North Shore. But it still could rise or it will fall. Not on whether or not we have more kosher restaurants. It would be nice, right? I'd like it. Not on how many people are walking with Cantor, Lana, and I on Shabbos. We'd love the company. Come join us. It'd be great. It's not going to rise or fall based on how often we're coming to Daily Minyan. They'd love you to come more to Daily Minyan. If you can, please do. But that's not the crossroads that we're at. This place, this great community will rise or it will fall based on one thing. Do we have enough Jews willing to pray with their feet? Because the JCC, Federation, Cohen Hillel, ADL, JFNS, Aviv, the Holocaust Center, Shirat Hayam, every single shul, every single one of us, we could use more financial funding, absolutely, but money is not the answer. And that is not how this place will rise or how it will fall. Right? This community will come down to Jews praying with their feet. Let's take a couple of examples. Let's start with Cohen Hillel, because Cohen Hillel is at an existential crossroads. They are. I am an advocate, a supporter of Cohen Hillel. I believe without a community, without this community having a day school, start the stopwatch. It's the beginning of the end. You won't get the right leadership here. You won't get a kahal, a community of Jews committed and united in a community. We need Cohen Hillel, regardless of whether or not your kids go there or your kids don't go there or they've graduated from there or you don't have kids. They need our support. Now, I hear it all the time. Rabbi, they're going to be great. Why? Because the Mashiach, the Messiah, has arrived. His name is Noah Hartman. He's the new head of school. You know what? He is fantastic. Noah is doing an amazing job, and he is helping take us into the 21st century and beyond. But he is one man, and no man can do it, not in the time of the Torah and not here and not now. We need students at Cohen Hillel. If you're looking or considering a place for your Jewish child or grandchild, consider Cohen Hillel. It's an excellent academic and Jewish experience. It's holy, it's Hamisha, and without them, we are gone. We need philanthropists to invest, but most of all, we need Jews in this community to care, to voice your support. But more than just voicing it with our mouths, we need Jews in this community to support Cohen Hillel with their feet. May this be the year la'avod et avodat Adonai, that we take upon ourselves to support Cohen Hillel in some way, shape, or form as we support Cohen Hillel praying with our feet. And then there's the Federation. The Federation, it is true, is merging with CJP, Combined Jewish Philanthropies. I think the technical word is being assumed by CJP because they are far bigger and better and greater than we are, and that's a problem too. Because I hear about CJP all the time. We have no more words. We have no more worries. Hallelujah. Barry Schrag is coming. You want to talk about the Mashiach? Barry Schrag, the Federation Director of CJP, is perhaps the finest federation director in the land, except for my mother, right? One of the finest in the history of the Jewish Federation. Make no mistake about it. He is leading a great organization, but he has become a friend. He has become a mentor. He put his name on my book, right? I hope he's the Mashiach. If so, the book sells, but he'll be the first to tell you he's not the Mashiach. And he'll be the first to tell you that CJP is not coming here to pay for our problems. And they're not coming here to underwrite our deficit. And they're not coming here to do this for us. They will back us, but only if we back ourselves. They will support us, but only if we support ourselves. They will invest into this community, and they will, but only if we invest into ourselves. And they will help us lead, but they will not give us the leaders. They are asking us for leaders to stand up, to rise up, and to serve. Now is the time to get involved with Federation and CJP, to invest your dollars, but most of all, to pray with your feet. We need Federation. We need this to work. May this be the year, la'avod et avodat Adonai, that we serve God through serving CJP and the Federation. And that brings me to Shirat Hayam. We have a revolution of Jewish spirit going on here. Make no mistake about it. I believe we are a shining light of Judaism and what is possible on the North Shore, in Greater Boston, and far beyond. We are growing. We are growing younger. We are redefining Jewish suburban life in America. There are Orthodox shuls out there now. They call themselves non-Shirat Hayam. Not really, but that's my hope someday that they do. But the problem is the challenge here prevails too. Don't worry, right? Don't worry. We have incredible clergy here. We have an amazing CEO and fantastic professional staff, and that's all true. But my friends, that's not how the job will get done. That's not how this place was built. If you remember, those of you who were part of it, it didn't get built over money. That's not how Bethel and Temple Israel came together. It was about leadership. It was about young leaders, old leaders, all kinds of leaders coming together to start this enterprise, to do the hard work of letting the other two institutions go, and to creating this congregation. They came together, and it has been lay leadership that has helped make this work. Lay leadership that has been the inspiration. Lay leadership that will or will not help us hold this course. This is the true success, and this is what needs to be celebrated for our successes. This is why we have a revolution of Jewish spirit, and this is why and how we will continue. If we have the next generation to rise up and to pray with their feet. But that's the challenge. We don't have enough Milts, and we don't have enough Joes, and we don't have enough Sylvias across the North Shore and here at Shirat Hayam too. Andy Kaplan, his executive committee, the board, they are doing a tremendous job. But he's one man. They're one group. There are thousands of us who are a part of this congregation. They need you to rise up, to stand up, and to help lead. Where's the younger generation, the 30-somethings, 40-somethings? We need you to rise up and take on leadership positions now more than ever. Where are the empty nesters, the empty nest generation showing up and participating? Right now is not the time to withdraw membership because your kids are no longer in the system. That's not what we Jews do. That's not how we support community. We support it if we're directly using it or if at the time we're indirectly using it, because there will come a time where we will want an inspirational synagogue to which to turn. And where's the senior generation with time on their hands, retired, investing, volunteering? We need more people to help Georgie and others do the Shabbat Cafe, right? And so many people, so many seniors working their hearts out here, but they need others to join them, to help volunteer, pick an area, one area, get involved, get invested, show up and give back. Yes, we need money. We do. Andy is right. The Lev Initiative is crucial to what we do. So tithe your money, but also tithe your Tithe your time this year. Tithe your talent, your professional skill set. Find in some way, whatever that way is, for you to give back. Make this the year that we not only pray with our mouths, make this the year, la'avod et avodat Adonai, that we also pray with our feet. There are so many worthy institutions on this Jewish North Shore to get involved with. Pick one, get behind them, and pray with your feet. It is now time for Yizkor. We're heading into Yizkor, but I don't want to head into it without this. Martin Luther King Jr. said, everybody can be great. Everybody can be holy because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to be Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, or even believe in God to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You only have to have a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. You only need to serve. You only need to serve through praying with your feet. This is why we remember Sylvia, and this is why we remember Joe, and this is why we'll remember Milt and your parents and your grandparents and great-grandparents, and this is why they'll remember you and me. This is how we get into heaven. Kashrut is important, and Shabbos is important, and davening is important, but none of it is as important as going out into the world and serving God through praying with our feet. This is how people get into heaven, and this is now why we honor those who have gone before us and paved the way. Shana Tova.